Russia's economy is cracking, and yet their dictator Vladimir Putin remains as strong as ever. But what is the most dangerous authoritarian leader? It's a desperate one. And so the war in Ukraine has been going on way longer than the Russian elites thought it would. And they thought they were just going to waltz into Kiev, that this would last a few days. They end up having to backtrack, and now their progress has totally stalled. They are moving at a very slow rate. They're losing tons of men, way more men than Ukraine is losing. Russia has like 1.4 million casualties. Last month was one of the bloodiest months for the Russian forces since this war began. And Ukraine has pioneered a new type of drone warfare. They have like the best drones in the world, and they've been sending these drones deeper and deeper into Russian territory, trying to change the narrative of this war. And so they've been hitting like places like Wildberries facilities. Wildberries is like Russian Amazon, to try to cause shortages. They've been hitting oil refineries, because that's how Russia gets all its revenue, right? Like, Russia's an oil producing country. Russia also has been running a larger deficit, increasingly larger deficit. Their growth has stalled from a few years ago. It was like 4%. Like, you get a kind of a boost when war starts, because then you have to transition your economy to a military industrial complex economy where everything's focused on the war effort. And they started doing that. And because they were caught off guard. Remember, they thought this was going to last a few days. It's years and years and years of slow, prolonged attrition war. Attrition meaning like incrementalist. And Russia has this like meat grinder. That's what they call the front lines. It's a meat grinder because people just die. But the elites in Moscow are kind of removed from that, right? Because the recruitment efforts are focused on poorer regions outside of Moscow. So like the average person in Moscow, it's a censored economy, might not even realize that there are 1.4 million casualties. And also casualties doesn't mean deaths, right, guys? Like casualties, missing, injured, many things. They might not even know that though. Right? Because like it's an intentional, by design, insulation of Moscow, which is where the elites are. And so the average Moscow resident might not even know that. They might think the war's going okay, although it's hard to tell what approval is in an authoritarian regime, but like it seems like people are getting tired. But they could give you more tired if they're continual. They're like lines for gas. Russia's oil revenues have fallen. They got a little bump recently because oil prices are high because of the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil comes from, is closed because of the war in Iran. But even that's not enough. Like, military leaders in Russia are finally saying like, uh-oh, this is getting expensive, this is getting difficult, we might have to also have another conscription, meaning like calling people instead of to the front lines, instead of just like what they do now is like they offer huge bonuses, life-changing money, and then they get poorer people to join the war effort. But this is continuing. But like I was saying, Putin remains as strong as ever. Putin has consolidated power over decades. He is an ex-KGB operative, and he has a chokehold on the economy. He has silenced dissidents. He killed Navalny, who is like the leader of the Russian opposition. Now it's like unclear who that leader is. I mean, you saw The Economist recently like showed this Russian oligarch who's like, I need to say something now. Guys, the Russian oligarchs are not going to save the country, okay? Like, the Russian oligarchs are beholden to Putin largely. They could be silenced by him. Their entire empires could be destroyed. And also, like, to remove Putin, it's just such a big ordeal. Like, this is another thing, guys. Like, Russia has been under authoritarian rule for centuries, basically, with little brief periods of democracy. In the early 20th century, it literally lasted a couple days before the Soviets eventually, Union in its iteration came. And then in the 90s, there was this brief period of more liberal democracy that we might view in the West like as positive. But that period's not viewed positively by Russians for good reason. Like, people need to understand, here's a niche geopolitical concept people need to understand, to not view things from just the Western lens of like, what is democracy, what is good, just because someone doesn't necessarily place the highest value on like a Western style liberal democracy or like a different type of democracy doesn't mean they don't value human liberty or like value freedom of choice. Like, it's different. Like, they view that period where there was like more freedom in like terms of who you vote for in the 90s negatively. That was like a period of national humiliation, of economic strife and turmoil, and then a strongman, Putin, took over, and for a while like the economy got a little better, like in comparison to that, maybe more stability. And also, like, over time, Putin has such silenced dissident to such a degree that there won't be this likely like the case of a mass uprising against Putin. It would require so much more to happen, and we're nowhere near that. And also, if that were to happen, if Putin is what I'm saying is like, if he actually were to get cornered, is that necessarily a good thing? Or is a dangerous dictator the one who is on his heels, who is fearful of what could happen? Like, that guy if that happened, like, who's to say he wouldn't try to escalate this conflict even further? Who's to say he wouldn't do something even more egregious than what he's already done in Ukraine? Who's to say he wouldn't go after the Baltic states or something to try to escalate this? We don't know. But this entire thing that's going on right now, the Russian economy is cracking, but it could take a long time. It could take a long, long time. It could take several more years. It could take 10 years. It could never happen. Like, but the economy is faltering, like down from growth of 4% previously to like less than 1% now. Brief reprieve from these high oil prices won't last forever. Russia increasingly becomes a dependent state on China. They have a no limits partnership. There are limits, by the way, but it's like no limits partnership with China. But what China would like is like for Russia to be totally dependent on them, to act as this buffer between them and the West, and be like a vassal state of them. Vassal meaning like proxy, like totally beholden to them. And as this war prolongs, as this economy gets worse, that just becomes more and more likely that we see a faltering, weaker Russia, but not a weaker Putin.